I never thought Thanksgiving would be the day my own daughter would look me in the eye and tell me to get out. But there I was, standing in the driveway of the house I'd helped her buy, watching her close the door on 28 years of being her father. It started 3 months earlier, when Jennifer got engaged to Marcus. I should have been happy. Any father would want to see his daughter settled with a successful man. Marcus had everything on paper: investment banker, Harvard MBA, a smile that belonged in a toothpaste commercial. But something about the way he looked at me during that first dinner made my skin crawl, like I was a stain on his perfectly pressed shirt. I'm Robert Mitchell, 63 years old, retired postal worker, widower for 5 years. My wife Sarah died of cancer, and since then, Jennifer was all I had. I thought I was all she had too. I was wrong. The trouble started when Marcus moved in with Jennifer. Suddenly, my weekly Sunday dinners became monthly, then every other month. The calls got shorter. And when Marcus answered her phone, he always had a reason why she couldn't talk. Too busy. In a meeting, at the gym, always something. But I kept trying. Because that's what fathers do. That Thanksgiving, I drove 2 hours to their place in Westchester, with Sarah's famous pumpkin pie recipe. I'd spent all morning making it, just like she used to. When Jennifer opened the door, I saw Marcus standing behind her, his hand on her shoulder like a puppeteer. "Dad," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "We need to talk." I knew that tone. I'd heard it before when she was 16 and wrecked my car, when she dropped out of college for a semester, when she told me about her mother's diagnosis. It was her bad news voice. "Marcus and I have been discussing our future," she continued, still standing in the doorway, not inviting me in, "and we think it's time for some changes." "What kind of changes?" I asked, though something in my gut already knew. Marcus stepped forward, his cologne so strong it made my eyes water. "Robert, Jennifer and I are building a new life together. Fresh start. Clean slate." "I don't understand." "Dad." Jennifer finally looked at me, and I saw it. Shame. Guilt. But also something harder, something Marcus-shaped. "You've been depending on me too much since Mom died. It's not healthy. For either of us." "Depending on you? Jenny, I call you once a week. It's more than that," Marcus interrupted. "The emotional burden. Jennifer needs to focus on our future, not be weighed down by the past." "The past?" My voice cracked. "I'm her father." "And you'll always be her father," Marcus said, like he was explaining quarterly earnings to an intern. "But she needs space to grow. We need space." Jennifer's eyes were wet, but she didn't contradict him. That hurt worse than anything. "What are you saying?" I asked, though I knew. God help me, I knew. "I think it's best if you don't come around for a while," Jennifer whispered. Maybe a year. Give us time to establish our marriage." "A year?" The pie dish almost slipped from my hands. "Jenny, please. Don't make this harder than it has to be," Marcus said, his hand tightening on her shoulder. "You can leave the pie. We'll enjoy it." And just like that, the door closed. I stood there for a full minute, staring at the wreath with their intertwined initials. J and M, no R for Robert. I wasn't part of their future. I drove back to my apartment in Queens in a daze. The place felt even emptier than usual. Sarah's pictures on the walls seemed to accuse me. "How did you let this happen? How did you lose our daughter?" The next morning, reality hit. My savings were nearly gone. I'd been living on Social Security and a small pension, but I'd spent most of it helping Jennifer with her down payment, her car, her student loans. I'd thought I was investing in our relationship. Turned out I was just making it easier for her to cut me loose. I needed work. Fast. That's how I found myself 2 weeks later, standing outside the Ashworth estate in Cold Spring, New York. The ad had been simple. Groundskeeper needed, room and board included. Must be reliable and discreet. The estate sat on 15 acres overlooking the Hudson River, a stone mansion that looked like it had been transported from the English countryside. The gardens were overgrown, wild roses tangling with weeds, statues covered in moss. It had the sad beauty of neglect. A woman answered the door. Not the housekeeper I expected, but someone around 40, in faded jeans and a sweater with paint stains. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she had the kind of face that was pretty without trying. "You're here about the groundskeeper position?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. Robert Mitchell." She studied me with sharp green eyes. "You're older than I expected." "I'm 63, but I'm fit, strong." I worked for the Postal Service for 35 years, all weather, all conditions. Why do you need this job? She asked it bluntly, like she could smell desperation. I could have lied, should have lied, but something about her directness made me want to match it. My daughter told me she doesn't want me in her life anymore. I spent everything I had helping her, and now I've got nowhere to go. I need the room and board. She nodded slowly. Follow me. We walked through the house, and I tried not to gape. High ceilings, mahogany everywhere, paintings that probably cost more than I'd made in my entire life. But everything had a layer of dust, a sense of being unused. She led me to the back terrace, where the garden spread out before us. Even overgrown, it was magnificent. My mother designed this garden, she said quietly. Catherine Ashworth. She died 6 months ago. Cancer. I'm sorry for your loss. She spent every day out here. Even at the end, when she could barely walk, she'd have me push her wheelchair through the paths. She turned to me. I'm Victoria Ashworth. This is my family's estate, though I'm the only one left now. I'm sorry, I said again. Because what else do you say? I want to restore the garden, make it what it was when she was alive. But I don't know the first thing about gardening. I'm an artist. I paint. She gestured vaguely at her clothes. I need someone who can bring it back to life. Someone who understands loss. Why do you say that? Because there's something in your eyes. A sadness, but also a stubbornness. You know what it's like to lose something precious, but you're not ready to give up. She paused. Am I wrong? No, ma'am. It's Victoria, and you're hired. Can you start today? That's how I came to live in the groundskeeper's cottage at the Ashworth estate. It was small but comfortable, clean and well-maintained, better than my apartment in Queens had been, better than I deserved. The work was hard but good, physical labor that left me too tired to think about Jennifer, about Sarah, about everything I'd lost. I cleared paths, pruned roses, replanted flower beds, following the diagrams I found in Catherine Ashworth's garden journals. She documented everything, every plant, every season, every change. Reading her words, I felt like I knew her. Victoria checked on me every few days, bringing coffee or just sitting on the garden bench, watching me work. She didn't talk much, but when she did, it was real. No small talk, no pretending everything was fine. Do you have children? I asked her one afternoon, 3 weeks into the job. One. A son. Daniel. Her voice changed when she said his name, became softer. He's 12. Lives with his father most of the time. Divorce? Yeah. 5 years ago. James got custody because he could prove I was unstable. She said it matter-of-factly, but I heard the pain underneath. I had a breakdown after my father died. Spent 2 months in a psychiatric facility. By the time I got out, James had convinced the court I was unfit. That's not right. No, it's not. But that's the law. I get Daniel every other weekend and holidays. James makes it as difficult as possible, of course. Drops him off late, picks him up early, always has some reason why Daniel can't come. I understood that game. The slow erosion of a relationship, death by 1,000 cuts. How does Daniel feel about it? He's angry. At me, at his father, at the world. She smiled sadly. He barely talks to me when he visits. Just sits in his room with his headphones on. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just kept working. But I thought about it. Thought about how we lose the people we love, sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once. A month later, everything changed. It was a Saturday morning when Victoria came to the cottage, and I knew immediately something was wrong. Her eyes were red, her hands shaking. Daniel's here, she said, but something's happened. I need help. I followed her to the house. In the living room, a boy sat on the couch, hunched over, his face hidden behind long dark hair. He was thin, wearing clothes that were too big, and his hands were clenched into fists. Daniel, Victoria said gently, this is Robert. He works here. The boy didn't respond. Didn't even look up. James dropped him off an hour ago, Victoria told me quietly. Said Daniel got in a fight at school, suspended for 2 weeks. James is going on a business trip and doesn't want to deal with it. What kind of fight? I don't know. Daniel won't talk to me. Won't talk at all. I looked at the boy again, really looked, and I saw it. The defensive posture, the isolation, the anger turned inward. I'd seen it before, in the mirror, after Sarah died and Jennifer started pulling away. Can I try? I asked Victoria. She nodded, desperate. I sat down on the couch, not too close, giving Daniel space. For a long moment I didn't say anything, just sat there, present but not demanding. Finally I spoke. My daughter doesn't talk to me anymore either. That got a reaction. Daniel's head moved slightly, though he still didn't look up. She told me I was a burden, that I was holding her back from her new life with her fiancé, said she needed a year without me. I paused. That was 6 weeks ago. Why are you telling me this? Daniel's voice was rough, like he hadn't used it in a while. Because I know what it's like when the people who are supposed to love you make you feel like you're too much. Like you're the problem. I am the problem, he muttered. Why do you say that? Because everywhere I go, I screw things up. My dad's perfect new family, my mom with her perfect estate, school, everywhere. I'm just wrong. What happened at school? Daniel finally looked up, and I saw his eyes were the same green as Victoria's, but filled with so much pain it hurt to see. Some kids were making fun of this girl, Sophie. She's deaf. They were mocking her, doing fake sign language, laughing. And you defended her? I punched Tommy Martinez in the face. Broke his nose. He said it defiantly, but I heard the shame underneath. Why did you do that? Because nobody else would. They all just stood there, laughing or ignoring it. And Sophie, she just looked so alone. His voice cracked. I know what that feels like. Victoria had been standing in the doorway, and I heard her sharp intake of breath. You did the right thing, I said. But I got suspended. My dad says I'm violent, unstable, just like my mom. Your dad's wrong, I said flatly. Violence isn't the same as protecting someone, and standing up for someone who can't defend themselves isn't unstable. It's brave. The school doesn't think so. Schools don't always know the difference. But you do, don't you? You knew what you were doing was worth the consequences. Daniel nodded slowly. Does Sophie know sign language well? I asked. Yeah, she's been deaf since birth. She taught me some signs last year. We were friends before. He trailed off. Before what? Before my dad told me I shouldn't hang out with her. Said it would hurt my social standing or whatever. I felt a flash of anger at James Ashworth, but pushed it down. Do you want to still be friends with her? Yeah. But how? I'm suspended, and I don't even know if she knows I got in trouble for defending her. An idea was forming. Probably a terrible idea. What if we invited her here? To the estate. Your mom's here, I'm here. You could hang out, be friends again. Victoria stepped forward. I think that's a wonderful idea. Really? Daniel looked between us, suspicious but hopeful. Really, Victoria said. Give me Sophie's parents' number. I'll call them. That's how Sophie Chen came to the Ashworth estate the following Tuesday. She was a small Asian girl with thick glasses and a bright smile, and the way Daniel's whole face lit up when he saw her told me everything I needed to know. I watched them from the garden as they sat on the terrace. Daniel was signing awkwardly, his hands clumsy, and Sophie was laughing, correcting him patiently. It was beautiful. Victoria stood next to me. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For seeing him. Really seeing him. His father looks at Daniel and sees all his flaws. I look at him and see all my failures. But you just see him. He's a good kid. Because of boys like him, girls like Sophie have someone in their corner. She paused. My mother used to say that the measure of a person is how they treat those who can do nothing for them. Daniel punched a boy for a girl who could give him nothing in return except friendship. That's character. Over the next 2 weeks of Daniel's suspension, Sophie came to the estate almost every day. Her parents, both doctors, were grateful for a safe place where their daughter could be herself, and something magical happened. I started learning sign language. It began because I wanted to say hello to Sophie properly. Daniel taught me the sign, and she smiled so big it made my whole day. Then I learned thank you, beautiful day, and would you like lemonade? Basic things. But each sign I learned, I saw Sophie's face light up more. Why are you doing this? Victoria asked me one evening as I sat on my cottage porch, practicing signs from a library book Daniel had brought me. Because nobody had ever spoken to Sophie in her own language except Daniel, I said. Everyone else just talked at her, expected her to read lips or write notes. But when Daniel signs to her, really communicates with her, she becomes someone different, confident, joyful. My mother would have loved you, Victoria said softly. The garden was nearly complete by then. 3 months of work, and it was transformed. The roses bloomed in reds and pinks, The pathways were clear and lined with lavender. The fountain that had been clogged with leaves now burbled peacefully. It looked like the photos in Catherine Ashworth's journals. But something else was happening, something I hadn't expected. I was becoming part of something. A family, strange and broken as it was, but a family nonetheless. Then, 2 days before Christmas, my phone rang. Jennifer. My hands shook as I answered. Hello? Dad. Her voice sounded strained. I need to talk to you. Okay. Can I come see you? I gave her the address to the estate, and 2 hours later, she pulled up in Marcus's BMW. She looked different, thinner, older. When she stepped out of the car, I saw she'd been crying. Dad, she said, and then she broke down, just completely fell apart in my arms. I held her while she sobbed, there in the driveway of the Ashworth estate, and I didn't ask questions, just let her cry herself out. Finally, she pulled back. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. What happened? Everything. Marcus. He's not who I thought he was. He's controlling. Mean. He monitors my phone, my emails. I can't see my friends. And he told me. He told me that cutting you out of my life was the first test of my commitment to him. My blood ran cold. Jenny. I failed the test apparently, because I kept thinking about you, wondering if you were okay, and on Thanksgiving when I said those things, fresh tears streamed down her face. I didn't mean them. He told me what to say, made me practice it. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was ashamed and scared. He said if I left him, he'd ruin me. He's wealthy, connected. He could do it. She looked up at me with desperate eyes. I'm so sorry, Dad. I threw you away like trash, and you didn't deserve that. Mom wouldn't have forgiven me. Your mother would understand, I said gently. And so do I. How can you forgive me so easily? Because you're my daughter, and love doesn't have conditions. I paused. But Jenny, you can't stay with him. I know. I'm leaving him. I already talked to a lawyer. It's going to be messy, but I can't. I can't live like this anymore. Where will you go? I don't know. I might have to sell the house to afford a place on my own. I thought of the cottage, the estate, Victoria and Daniel and Sophie, my strange new family. Give me a day, I said. Let me talk to someone. Victoria was in the garden when I found her, sketching the roses. I told her everything. About Jennifer, about Marcus, about the situation. Bring her here, Victoria said immediately. What? The cottage has 2 bedrooms. She can stay with you until she gets back on her feet. God knows this place is big enough, she smiled. Besides, family helps family, even chosen family. That night, Jennifer moved into the cottage. And on Christmas morning, something extraordinary happened. Victoria had invited all of us to the main house for breakfast. Me, Jennifer, Daniel, and Sophie with her parents. The table was full, laughter echoing off the high ceilings of the Ashworth mansion for the first time in months. Daniel taught Jennifer some basic signs, and she practiced with Sophie. The Chen family told stories about their medical work. Victoria showed everyone her latest paintings. And I sat there, watching, marveling at how life could break you down and build you back up into something completely different. Better, even. After breakfast, Victoria pulled me aside. I have something for you. She handed me a wrapped package. Inside was a book, Advanced Sign Language for Beginners. I saw how much it meant to Sophie, having you learn, Victoria said, and I thought, maybe you could teach me, and Jennifer, so she feels even more welcome? I'd like that. There's something else. Victoria's expression turned serious. I want to make the groundskeeper position permanent. Full salary, benefits. And I want to start a program here, bringing in kids like Daniel and Sophie, kids who don't fit in, who need a place to be themselves. The garden could be their sanctuary. Would you help me build that? I thought of my life 6 months ago, alone, discarded, purposeless, and I thought of my life now, connected, needed, whole. Yes, I said. I'd be honored. Jennifer stayed through New Year's, and by then she'd filed for divorce and found an apartment near the estate. She started volunteering with Victoria's program, helping set up activities for the kids. Marcus tried to fight the divorce, tried to ruin her reputation, but Victoria's lawyers were better, and her mother's name still carried weight in Westchester County. Sophie came to the estate twice a week for garden club, which was really just an excuse for kids to have a safe space. Daniel started bringing other friends. Kids who were different, who struggled, who needed somewhere to belong. And they all learned sign language together, because if Sophie was part of their family, they'd speak her language. One afternoon in February, I was pruning the roses when I saw Victoria watching me from the terrace. Next to her stood a woman in a wheelchair, translucent, smiling. I blinked, and she was gone. But I felt her approval, warm as sunshine. Catherine Ashworth, the woman whose garden I'd restored, whose daughter I'd helped save, whose legacy I was continuing. Thank you, I whispered to the air. The roses seemed to bloom brighter. Jennifer visited every Sunday now, sometimes staying for dinner. We'd never talked about that Thanksgiving, about the door closing in my face. We didn't need to. She'd apologized. I'd forgiven, and we were building something new. Not the relationship we'd had before Sarah died, but something more honest, more real. Dad, she said one Sunday in March, I want you to know something. What's that? You taught me the most important lesson of my life. Not through words, but through actions. What lesson? That real love doesn't abandon people when they make mistakes. It waits, it forgives, it welcomes them home. She squeezed my hand. Marcus said love was about sacrificing everything for the other person. But you showed me that love is about showing up even when the other person hasn't earned it. You're my daughter, I said simply. You'll always be my daughter. That night, as I sat on my cottage porch, watching the sunset paint the Hudson River gold, I thought about the journey that brought me here. From that driveway in Westchester, homeless and heartbroken, to this moment of peace and purpose. I'd lost everything. And in losing it, I'd found something better. A family built not on blood or obligation, but on choice and compassion. Victoria and Daniel, Sophie and her parents, the kids who came to the garden seeking sanctuary, and Jennifer, returned and redeemed. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. Can you teach Sophie's parents the sign for Rose Garden tomorrow? They want to surprise her. I smiled and typed back. Of course. This was my life now, teaching a language I'd learned at 63, tending a garden that wasn't mine but felt like home, being a father to a daughter who'd lost her way and found her back, being a grandfather figure to kids who needed one, being needed, being loved. The roses I'd planted last month were starting to bud. By April, they'd bloom red and full, Catherine Ashworth's favorite variety. I thought of her journals, her careful documentation of every season, every change, and I realized I was doing the same thing in my own way, documenting not plants, but people, watching them grow, bloom, transform. That's what gardens do, after all. They take broken things, cut stems, wilted flowers, barren soil, and they make something beautiful. That's what Victoria's Sanctuary was doing for these kids. That's what this strange, wonderful place had done for me. I'd been discarded like trash on Thanksgiving, but I'd been replanted in this garden, given room to grow, and somehow, impossibly, I'd bloomed. And I wasn't done blooming yet. Not by a long shot.